All right, so here we are with a very special episode of the Living Force cast. Are we numerically this one?
No,
I don't think that's a word, but I'm going to do it.
This is a special episode.
Just special episode?
Special episode 1.
All right, it is a post-Nationals Day 1 cast, and unfortunately isn't live because our Wi-Fi is having problems.
Wi-Fi is poop.
Yes, but it is me, TGO, and a
there.
very special Erik Dahlman.
Hello.
Eric, you are, we'll dive into the questions and let you introduce yourself that way.
Sure.
Sound good?
Yep.
You just want to start off questions?
We're not going to do a Gencon recap real quick, or?
That is up to Eric. If Eric would like to be around for a Gencon recap.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Here comes a recap about Gencon. There were 78 players?
78 was what started the day. I think.
78. Down just a little bit, less than 20 from
Yeah,
last
it's probably
year.
down to about just over 50 or 60
Sure.
at the end of the day.
Sure.
I didn't get the actual total.
There were so many drops.
There were quite a few.
I can't imagine the number of Luke pilots you guys have left at this point. Just
I can't either.
We've probably got a stack still that's stall sitting somewhere.
So there was 78 to start, somewhere around there.
Yep.
And a ridiculous amount of well-known, very tournament competitive players.
Yeah,
it was a very
really good.
tough field.
Definitely really good set of competitors for today.
Yes, it was just great to see the turnout from just the number of people that drove from different states and whatnot. It was just crazy.
I stayed in my state.
Yes, you did.
So.
You did. But we're now down to 16. There are only 16 left for tomorrow. And I think I was reading, because I forgot to look, I'm bad, but I think there were 8 people tied on 24, and only 3 of them didn't make it.
Yeah, I didn't check the numbers, but yeah, there was 2 or 3 at the 24 slot that were under the cut line.
And coincidentally enough, I don't know if he'll appreciate this throw-out, but I saw Romo was number 17.
He was the bubble boy.
He was bubble boy at Worlds, but there was a player that did not play day 2 of Worlds, and so Romo was in. I'm wondering if we're going to see a Worlds repeat. If Romo will be, I hope he shows up. It benefited him last year, or Worlds, I should say. But I think there was only 3. Scotty was 18. I can't remember who was 19.
Ketracel. He was on 24,
and he was so excited for winning his sweep at the end there. That's a bummer.
He thought he was going to sneak in.
Well, big congrats to TGO. You did make the top 16.
Number 15.
Number 15 represents. You are starting off as Dark Side most likely tomorrow.
That's fine.
Are you excited?
I'm stoked.
We had a flip-flop. I had top 16 last year. You top 16 this year.
Yes.
Pretty awesome.
Second time top 16, making the top cut in that.
But this is a much bigger deal because there are Death Star dials tomorrow, and the top 16 last year, if I'm recalling correctly, there was no difference.
I won't believe there's a Death Star dial, no offense, Eric, until I see them.
But was there a difference last year? Because I know top 32 got the tokens.
Yeah.
Top 16 got playmats last year.
I don't think top 8 got anything.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Anything
I don't
different.
remember.
Yeah. So pretty crazy. Pretty cool. If it is the Death Star dial that has been rumored, we've been told it is a Death Star dial, but we
haven't seen them.
Yes.
I'm hoping they're there in the morning, and that might get me to play a little more seriously.
I have faith. I think they'll be there. Anyway, you're excited? You liked your decks for the day?
Yeah, I mean, I played some. I didn't think they were competitive, but I made top 16 with them. So
Which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Do you want to say what they are?
Yeah, okay.
You don't have to give out the full list. Just what's the affiliations?
For Dark Side, I'm Scum.
What?
And it's
Is it Monoscum?
No.
All right.
It's mixed.
Don't arm your opponents.
Dude, I don't care. I've already told numerous people.
All right, what's the light side?
Light side is Rebel affiliation,
but
it's Rebel vehicles with Keon.
Okay.
And I'm not playing Jedi affiliation to avoid.
Favorite card in the Rebel deck?
Resupply Depot.
Okay, from the capital ship set.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's been a few times I've had a reserve value of 8. And I had double resupply depot with Keon a time or 2 today.
Awesome.
It's disgusting.
I did not fare nearly as well. 24 was the cutoff. I was on 18. My decks failed me today, and it was not fun for me.
It just wasn't your day.
Right, but you know me. I'm more of a social butterfly. These things, I just walk around and talk to everybody.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, no joke. The number of people that are like, you talk a lot today. Yeah, I do. But I had a really rough field. My first round was a bye. Second round was Booker, who did pretty well as well. Third round was a gentleman, I can't remember his name. He's a good player. Fourth round was Matt K, otherwise known as Haida77. Fifth round was Tom Philippi. And sixth round was, I can't remember his name, but it was a rough field. It was yeah. Anyway, we have questions for Eric.
I had a much easier day than you.
Did you?
So, yeah.
All right, well, that's good. I'm glad I took the rough one for the
It's
Living
good.
Force
And
guys.
the only like named players that, well, they're named to me, is DB Me Boy Matt Brown and Tom Malucci.
Oh, okay.
And I slept one, got slept by the other. So
So it worked out both ways, I guess.
yeah.
All right. So Eric, before we get into the questions, did you have any recap thoughts?
No, not really. It was just worked out fairly smoothly today. We had a couple of hiccups with the pairings, but they got smoothed out really quickly. Yeah. And with a minimum of needing to move around afterwards.
Sure.
This worked really well. Everyone was played fairly well for us all day, and hopefully we'll end up having a good set of games for tomorrow as well.
Yeah. The only move around I really remember was, I think, 6 rounds.
Last round there was
A lot of people got
there was a mix up, and it was a change near the top of the list, which filtered down into everything.
Exactly. Which some of it can be error type stuff, but I mean at the same time, like after that 5th round, there's so many people that are dropping. There's so many people that are doing other stuff. Like that kind of stuff it's just gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise,
yeah, it worked really well. So
I mean, 70-some people. There's only 2.
Almost 80 people. Yeah.
Yeah, only 2 judges, and at not one point did I see either of you guys acting like something was out of control.
Nope. Everything was fairly on point for today. So
That's awesome.
Like, nothing really thorny came up.
That's good.
So.
That's good. The nothing ugly.
Nothing really, no.
I don't think I've ever been to an event personally where there's been something like ugly that's come up.
I was told not to get belligerent and refused to leave.
What? I don't even think I want to know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have some questions for Eric here, and I'm ready to dig in. We're gonna alternate these.
Sure. Who's odds? Who's even?
I'll let you kick things off.
Okay. So I'll take the odds. All right, Eric. So how long have you been a designer for the Star Wars LCG?
So I've been working on the Star Wars LCG for about 3 years. I've actually been working at Fantasy Flight for only about 4 years. I started working in the event center in the old location as just a sales associate there, and then about a little less than a year after I was working there, a position opened up in the LCG department, and I applied for it. And I had been playing. There was a Saturday night weekly Thrones. Game of Thrones night that I had been kind of attending if I wasn't working, or if I was working, occasionally we'd go up and talk to those, and a lot of the guys from the department had come to play, so I'd gotten to know all of them over the course of over a year, and I ended up getting hired as the open designer spot right about the time that we were working on the Star Wars LCG. So that was basically not my first, but one of my first sets of projects was working on this.
Very cool. Now, do you still play like the original Thrones off and on?
I still remember how to play, and I still have cards for it. I just haven't had an overly large amount of time to play that. Apart from working on stuff for the Star Wars game, and I've been helping out with Netrunner some as well. So I've had to work on that some too.
Have you got some games in with 2.0?
A few. I've helped doing some of the playtests for that. So
pretty excited about it.
Yeah,
awesome.
I really like the way they took that, and just the way it's been updated, I think, is very good for it.
We heard a lot of good things. And that event's not tomorrow, Saturday.
That event
right?
is Saturday. I'm actually also helping to judge that
Are
event
you?
on Saturday.
The Kingslayer.
Awesome.
Yeah, Kingslayer tournament.
All right. Well, how many hours per day do you think you spend like researching Star Wars related lore and content?
Not nearly as many as you might think, given what shows up in the cards. It's kind of sad. Back in high school, I played a lot of the Star Wars CCG by Decipher. I also played a very large amount of the Star Wars RPG by West End Games.
Oh, yeah,
And so I spent a lot of time with that material, and if anyone that plays the Decipher CCG knows, all the cards had a little bit of lore information in them. All the West End books had a whole lot of background information. So I've got a fairly large grounding just from that I knew. I think that may have had something to do with getting hired. Who knows? But
you learn a lot about the Star Wars universe from just Decipher games. Because they put some obscure people. Obscure stuff in their game, which was pretty
they
cool.
incorporated everything, and at the time, majority of it wasn't established. So they were actually establishing a lot.
They were doing a lot of the establishing for the universe,
which is really, really crazy. Fun story, since you said you play. I don't know if you know, but I knew most of the Cypher crew pretty well.
Okay.
And at big events, I would go and hang out with them. We would have some fun playtesting sessions. We'd have some fun. They would do some. I don't want to call them drafting sessions, but it would kind of be like an employee-only silly stuff or whatever. So I'd always hang out, chat with everybody and stuff. My favorite all-time Decipher story, they used to do box sets, the little 2-player things. They did 2.
That was actually the 2-player box set, the first one with Vader and Luke, was the first product I ever bought for a CCG.
See, not a lot of people remember that stuff was out there, but they did it. And they had a Hoth one. They followed up with a Hoth one.
Didn't get that.
Not many people did. It was a little hard to find, and I think it had whiteboarded versions of some cards that came out later, and I think those whiteboarded ended up being somewhat sought after because you could only get them in that box for a bit.
Yeah.
But there was a Chewbacca in the box, and it was him from the scene where he pops his head up over the snow when he's looking at the probe droid, and I think Han comes out next and shoots the probe droid, if I remember the scene right or whatever.
Yep.
So the image of him I'm sure you guys have all seen it online before. It's just him kind of a little snowy or whatever. And the Decipher guys, when they were making the cards and they were playtesting them internally, they told me that on him, they knew what image they were going to use, and so for the lore box, before they had anything associated, they wrote his lore was simply Frosty on the outside, Chewy on the inside. And that's what he was labeled at. That's my all-time favorite Decipher story.
That's pretty fun. Yeah, when I played the CCG, I didn't do very much competitive with it. I know I had one of my friends who I played with at the time actually won their Worlds event one of the years.
Nice.
A guy by the name of Matt Potter.
Yeah.
He was a friend of mine, played with him a bunch. Never really beat him. He was really good.
It was a very challenging game.
Yes, it was.
Very, very challenging. I always linked that one to chess. That was... It always felt like Magic was checkers and Star Wars CCG was chess.
My mental capacity at the time was not sufficient enough to play that game. I was too busy doing other things. Can you tell us a bit about your passion with gaming and designing?
Well, as I said, I've been playing collectible card games since the mid-'90s when they kind of came out, and games of various sorts have been a hobby of mine for a while. Even before I started doing CCGs, I always played board and card games with my family and such. My grandpa, my mom's dad was a very big card player, so I played lots of cribbage and a lot of other kind of games. So I've been playing games for quite a while, and so it's just some people occasionally say ask me about what I job. It's like, well, I designed cards for a game that I'd probably be playing in my spare time if I weren't working on it. So, yeah, I really enjoy being able to try and come up with new ideas that hopefully people can get excited about and have fun using. So.
Sure. Are you able to play in tournaments?
No, I'm not allowed to play in any FFG sanctioned tournaments.
What about if they just have a local? Did you ever get to play in local tournaments?
I could potentially, but I generally don't. So.
And that's across the board. That's not just for the LCG or Star Wars LCG.
I'm just out of curiosity. Why do you choose not to? I mean,
it would feel I think a little bit off. It's just if I'm I work on the game. It seemed potentially, but a little unfair.
I think you'd want to play with the stuff that you've made.
Well, I do get to play with it quite a bit when I'm testing stuff.
Well,
so.
Yeah, that's true.
One thing that Magic does at their somewhat big events is they do the shootout or gunslinging events where they get a pro player to sit and takes challenges, people sign up.
We actually did that for a bit with the plugged in tour for Netrunners.
Yes,
I was actually part of that.
Okay.
They drafted me for assisting with that, and so I was out on a couple of those weekends, and I was playing one of those decks. So.
Oh, okay.
I didn't have quite as high a win rate as I wanted, but it wasn't. I was better at 50-50.
Right on. Awesome. So jumping into a bit more with the game itself.
Mm-hmm.
The Force Packs Attack Run Chain of Command, they've just come out over the last couple weeks.
Yep.
They definitely changed the meta game quite a bit.
Sure.
Which is always awesome to see. which was your favorite objective set from each of those packs, and why?
Let's see. That's a little tricky. I would think from Attack Run, it's probably a toss-up between the Boba Fett set and probably Farlander's set.
Okay.
Both of them, I also in the mid-'90s played a lot of X-Wing and TIE Fighter, as anyone may have guessed, seeing the content of this cycle. And so, Farlander was, it was interesting to try and come up with a way to represent, a character who you are but never really see.
Sure.
In the game, and then Boba Fett is a fan favorite character, and it was fun to try and come up with a good version of him that was different than some of his other stuff, because we had both the core set and then the one that came in between the shadows. It's just like, how do I come up with a version that fits the fact that he's also a fair pilot and some other stuff, and fit that in with the rest of it. So
I think a lot of people, when BTS released, I think a lot of people, myself included, thought that was going to kind of be the definitive Boba Fett. And then Rogue Squadron throws us this giant curveball with this amazingly powerful 2-drop pilot Boba Fett that just...
2-cost capture.
Yeah. It's I definitely saw people playing it today. I didn't have to play against it. I was really grateful for that. But I definitely saw people running it.
I captured a few Lukes and Yodas today.
I regret not playing my list. I had a Boba Fett list. I really, really definitely... You were playing Boba Fett.
I was.
Oh, yeah. All right.
I do know that Mick has made quite a few good decks with the BTS Boba Fett, so it's still very good. It's just you have to find the right deck for it.
I love it. No, it's so good, and I think it's a set that'll get better. But it's... I think the synergy with Stay on Target and all the ships that are out right now, I think it's more likely to see the Rogue Squadron Boba in the current meta.
Yep.
But now, what about Chain of Command?
Chain of Command, definitely Thrawn is up there, just because it's a character that it was fun to design that set simply because it's a character that just about everyone that knows the Star Wars universe knows and likes, and so it was challenging to try and come up with something that represented just the sheer brilliance of that character in a card form.
Right.
And so, and getting that, the absolutely phenomenal artwork by Tony Foti for that one.
It's one of my favorite pieces of art.
It is.
Yeah, it's
really
good.
I am anxiously awaiting that on a plane.
We were all kind of crossing our fingers that it'd be the Nationals playing that. We really thought that would just coincide great. Now, Thrawn, Disney bought up everything, and reset canon stuff. So now it's considered Legends, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's awesome that he's in the game, and we don't know going forward what kind of, if Legend stuff will ever make it in. So I just think it's so cool that he's made it in, and I love the fact that we can play him.
Mm-hmm. He's one of my favorite characters. I wanted to play him, just couldn't find a home for him.
I read several of the books growing up, not a bunch, but at least 5, maybe 6 or something.
I read a good amount of the sort of first and second waves of them. I kind of stopped right around the time the New Jedi Order stuff was coming out. Yeah. But yeah, I read a bunch of the ones that all came before that. So
did anybody touch the character after that, or is he only in the Thrawn trilogy? I don't know.
He's in the Thrawn trilogy, and then there's a pair of books also written by Zahn.
Is it by Zahn?
That's set 19, 20 years later or something like that. There's basically it's an echo of it. I don't actually want to spoil that because it's actually fairly well written.
Well, it's on, right?
If you read the Thrawn trilogy, if you go read the Hand of Thrawn duology, it's pretty good.
All right, I'm gonna check it out. I told you, I don't know if we covered that on the cast, but I've not read all the Star Wars books. The Thrawn trilogy is probably the biggest, most known ones that I read. And so when BTS was coming out, I realized, I was I played that N64 Shadows of the Empire game,
yes.
which I had a blast with as a kid. I don't know that it holds up now. But that I told you, I was but I didn't really know the thing. Yeah. And so I didn't really want to read the book because I'd heard kind of mixed things on the book. But I found out that they had a comic of the book. Yeah. And so I was okay, well, I'll just cheat. I'll read the comic. I'll just take the easy way out. So I read the comic, and it's a weird comic. Things happen, and you're just I just don't remember them addressing anything about what's happening right now prior to it happening right now.
Yeah.
I never read the comic. I did read the book, though.
So I had to do research because I was really confused. I'm an avid comic reader, and I just thought the way the narration flowed in it that, pieces were missing or something. So I went and I read and I found fascinating things that when Lucas came up with the idea for Shadow of the Empire, he did it because he wanted that to pay for the special editions that he wanted to do. And so he decided to make it a big thing. He wanted it to be a book, a comic, and a video game. And so the book is, my understanding is the book is like the full story. The comic is like a tie-in that goes over most of it, but it's more like highlights, which is why I was so confused reading it. And then the video game tells aspects of it or something that. Like it kind of jumps around through the main stories.
Yeah, I'd never heard that.
Isn't that crazy? And so that was the big thing. He wanted it to be this big multimedia thing that he could, capitalize on through different medias to then support redoing the original trilogy and stuff. So anybody out there that hates the special editions can blame Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah, blame Shadows.
I thought it was very interesting. All right, so those are awesome. Keaton's not up there for me. I like it. Obviously, you saw my tech list.
Yeah.
But Boba and Thrawn, so good.
I think you could just about pick any set in Attack Run, and make a
Tier 1 deck.
Make an argument for that being like your favorite set. And I like Vader for the I Have You Now.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, but Keon is really good. The Luke set thematically is just really good. Yeah. And then Boba. So I don't think you can go wrong.
I heard a couple people today kind of dissing the Luke art. They just weren't a fan of the promo. I don't know what they're talking about. Like
it's cool art.
It's cool art, and I'll play that set. I'll put it in there.
It's cool art. It's just an interesting choice because he's coming out of the speeder, where the Hoth Luke is the speeder pilot, and this Luke was supposed to be...
It would make more sense if his card was brown. Yeah, I think we can agree. But I told you my guess was that the Worlds is going to see a Vader pilot alternate art and the Vader pilot mat. Yeah,
that'd be cool.
All right. What?
Next question?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so with Rogue Squadron focusing on pilots, which of the released pilots was your favorite to design and why?
Probably kind of a toss-up. I think it's kind of a tie between Hobby and DS613. So, DS613 has the distinct, interesting problem of we named his fighter Backstabber in the core set, so I had to use his actual pilot call sign instead of his call sign for his card. But that's what they were called in the old Decipher games. So it's like anyone that's played that, recognizes that immediately. But he was, just with that kind of name as Backstabber. It's like, okay, what do I do with this? And so I, find a fun way to make that, that name sort of stick.
Sure. He's like his ship, but better.
Hey, he complements his ship. They both can come in out of nowhere.
Well, yeah, they both do the same thing. But what I meant is that DS does it better because he does the two
twice as much.
Yeah, but he damages units and his ship damages objectives. So. Yeah. It's a little different.
I like the unit damage better.
I killed a Yoda with DS today.
I lost the speeder bike to a DS today. I was sad. I was a very sad panda.
DS is up there with one of the better pilots, I think.
I like him.
And then Hobby was just the trivia part that I put in the flavor text there about him spending more time in a Bacta tank was something that always, for whatever reason, just stuck with me. And so I was like, I gotta find a way to make sure that this comes through. Yeah. And I think it's worked out fairly well. It's just like this guy doesn't ever stay on the board. He keeps getting shot down.
We definitely underestimated that set when we got to spoil it.
We did. And I don't think either of us were thinking how many times those Rogue Squadrons would strike.
I attacked with one 5 times today in one turn, and it was tactics twice.
Now, Hobby is an interesting card because a lot of the times the cards, like their Force icons, kind of translate to how attuned the character might be to the Force. And I don't know too much about Hobby. I don't know. Is he I don't know the background on it.
Not that I'm aware of.
Right, but the Force icons make sense.
Sometimes
with
the
set.
Is, and I mean in this case, it's balancing the set because the Rogue Squadron X-wings, because of how they function, don't have any icons, and so in order for the set to have at least a reasonable floor of icons, they've got to go somewhere.
Right. No, that's why I think it's so interesting from a design perspective. That we had a game today where I had to commit Owen Lars to the Force because it had nothing to do with him. And it was just like, I think I went a turn or two with Owen just holding the Force.
I committed Hobby to the Force today.
Yeah. And it seems so backwards, especially given Owen's stance on everything, but it's just from a design process, it just makes sense that
It's one of the fun things about designing and playing the card games is just seeing these things that aren't necessarily overly representative of the source material, but aren't completely out there either.
For sure,
so
within the game they function.
Yeah, within the game they function, and they create an interesting story.
Right. Jumping a little bit from Rogue Squadron, the awesomeness that is Imperial Entanglements.
The amazingness.
Here at Gencon.
The amazingness. That's a word.
We did not have time to go get our boxes, but I tell you, the clever people that would send their friends with their little ticket stub to go get it. I was mad jealous every time I saw somebody at the table just like opening packs.
I was sitting there flipping through Nathan Ferraro's, just drooling on the cards.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get this tomorrow.
So it's here. It's out. What can you tell us about the design process for a box set like Imperial Entanglements?
So the box sets, so far have always focused around two factions, and so first it was figuring out what factions go together, and after we did Edge of Darkness, which is completing the core set and getting all of the factions up to the the same number of sets to start rolling. It was just like, okay, what are we going to do for box sets? And I didn't want to do the sort of obvious matchups because we'd just done Smugglers and Scum. And so if we put them, they're the obvious sort of matchup to go together. If we put them in another box, it didn't feel right. And so I was just like, all right, I'm going to start looking at these, sort of off faction pairings. And I remember one of the lines from A New Hope, which was Obi-Wan talking about not wanting any Imperial entanglements when he's talking to Han Solo.
Yeah. All right.
And it's like that's a perfect name for this pairing. And so
That really is. They
perfect. ended up in the box together, and just trying to then of course I have to figure out what does each faction need, or what are new and interesting things to try and spark some new deck ideas for from those factions.
Sure.
And so the Navy stuff definitely is kind of expanding some of their themes.
Command and Conquer. Yeah.
Command and Conquer, overwhelming firepower, those sorts of things. Smugglers got a lot more tricks. Yeah, some of their stuff will be maybe a little bit harder to figure out exactly where it goes, but it has places, and they definitely can be used very effectively.
They got some tricksy stuff.
It's going to blow up the meta.
That Imperial Entanglements set is like my new favorite set.
What's the main in it?
That's the Raider?
The Raider. Yeah, it's the one that gives the first unit that strikes a black gun.
Yeah.
And that just seems splashable with everybody.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Raiders, or not the Raiders, the Decimators.
Yep.
That are like the reverse Sleuth Scouts. If they defend alone, they strike first. And if you have that objective out, it's just like, I'm just going to kill your Sleuth Scout. And then you have Customs Blockade, which is like what Darkseid has needed forever. An event cancel. I mean, granted, it's the first one, but that's still something. You're still forcing them to have a tempo loss,
right,
by playing a second event,
right,
if they want to get the second one through,
right.
Are we moving on to the next question?
Yeah, we can.
Well, I just have one last thing. When you're designing the box, was there ever any? And I guess this goes back to, it would have gone back like before BTS. Were there any discussions about maybe just doing one faction per box? Because I know some of the other games just do one faction, right?
No, not really. I think with this game, especially the pod system, is just like the objective set system lends itself well to kind of having a mix of them in the box, just because you can get a couple of ideas and themes for some of them, but if you're trying to fill a whole box with them, you're either going to start stepping on the toes of other things, or just sort of maybe playing an idea out too much, and you end up it ends up not being nearly as interesting because it's not maybe it's too present.
Okay.
And so just having sort of a good focus on each of the two main factions, and especially with this game, with how easy it is to splash other affiliations, having just a little bit from the other sets to kind of just like give them something as well that either hopefully ties in with the themes of the two main factions of the deck, or just give them again something that they may need, or will provide an interesting deck type for them.
I like it as the 2. I think 2 is awesome. Like, if BTS was like all Jedi, my head probably would have exploded.
Yeah. So next question.
Yeah.
Okay, so what gaming or design elements within Imperial Entanglements are you excited for players to get their hands on?
A lot of the Navy stuff is pretty fun. As I believe I mentioned on the Ion Control podcast when they had me on, a month or so ago. I've liked Star Destroyer decks, kind of what I play for fun, and so that there's definitely a good Star Destroyer set in there for use, and so Smugglers have a lot of fun tricks. I believe the announcement article posted Lando's set.
Yes.
And,
all kinds of tricks.
Lando has got a lot of fun stuff you can do with him. It's
all kinds of
it's kind of crazy.
The objective is just absurdly annoying.
What's the objective for listeners that haven't seen it?
When you go into an edge battle, you have to put a card in at random.
Yeah, that's right.
And but it's while and damaged, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah. The card I actually like from that set probably the most is the Sabak Addict. Because if you know what kind of deck your opponent is playing, you can do quite a bit of damage with that guy.
You have to name a specific card.
You name a specific card.
Yeah.
Still
I will name Emperor Palpatine.
Now, do you have a favorite Star Destroyer in the box?
There's only the one Star Destroyer.
Oh, is there? Okay, I haven't seen everything yet. I haven't seen.
It's just the Chimera.
Okay, all right.
There's other capital ships, but the Chimera is the only Star Destroyer.
Okay.
And that one as well is just like you go with the name of Chimera, you have multi heads and lots of different threads, and so it's like how do you make that into a ship? And it's like I can have it gain different kinds of icons. You don't know what the threat is coming at, which is kind of I think fits the name of the monster it's named after.
And it's the first capital ship with a tactics on it, which is something.
It may have something to do with whose ship it may.
Yeah.
Right. That is Thrawn ships, just so our listeners are clear. That's his. And does it? I can't remember how that book ends. Does it survive the? I can't remember how that book ends for the life of me.
I don't remember. I think it does, but I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
Again, that's all in the Legend storyline stuff now.
Yes. It never happened.
It happened in the 90s when I read it, but it's no more. All right, so tied into that. What sets within Imperial Entanglements would you say are the ones you like the most? Kind of specifically like design, instead of the design element, but just like fun or what you have the most fun with.
I think the Gencon pick set's probably my favorite out of that box. In addition to playing way too much X-Wing and way too much TIE Fighter, I also played far too much Dark Forces and Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight.
Nice.
And that fight, the Gencon pick fight on the Ceylon Star, was probably one of my favorites from that whole game.
Who are the characters from Dark Forces?
The different characters?
Yeah.
So we have Kyle Katarn's the main character that you play as. And then there's the 7 Dark Jedi that you face, which are Jarek, Saris, Bach, Maw, Gork, Pick, and Yun.
And Saris was actually in the CCG.
I didn't know that.
She's in as the prophetess.
Oh yes.
And that's her appearance. She's actually in the very first set. Yeah. And then the game, the lore they kind of established there, I think they built upon it within the story for, which one was it? Was it Dark Forces
Jedi
1 or
Knight.
2?
Jedi Knight is where
okay.
Yeah, Dark Forces 2. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's where the name of her objective set comes from.
Yes.
It's, the reference back to that sort of tie-in. So, but yeah, the Gencon pick fight was definitely the one that stuck with me the most because it was probably the one I had by far the most trouble with because Pick jumping in and out of being visible and invisible was just really annoying. So
that explains his ability then.
Now, did you play Dark Forces or Dark Forces 2?
I've played a few Star Wars video games in my life, but I always thought they were horrible. So
you just didn't play the right
There's
ones.
some good ones.
I've tended to steer clear of them.
All right, so here's what you need to know.
My video game of choice is typically sports games.
Sure.
So it's really not my thing.
So here's what you need to know. Dark Forces 2, they were basically capitalizing, I don't know if you remember this, but there was Wolfenstein was first as a big first-person shooter,
I used to
and
love
then Doom
Wolfenstein.
was the next big one.
And Doom,
and Dark Forces 2, they were pretty much they're shooting games in a sci-fi world. let's do something Star Wars. And LucasArts, I think it was LucasArts, was who was behind it, right?
Yep.
They back then they were creating easily some of the best video games, like X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. I think you ask any product of 90 gaming, like.
I actually preferred TIE Fighter to X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, but then again, I like the story in the campaign mode.
Sure.
Which is a lot of fun to play rather than the multiplayer battle.
So, I can't remember if they had the one I remember first having like the dial-up online was X-Wing versus TIE, but I don't know that, and I think that's why it stuck out to me. That was the.
What year were these games released?
Somewhere between 94
let's see. X-Wing I think
96.
was originally 93, and TIE Fighter was 95. They did an enhanced edition that came out with the expansions to them in the later 90s.
Were these computer games?
Yep,
or were
these
they
are
PC. No,
computer
PC.
games.
Okay, so I was stuck in the Stone Age until about my junior year in high school, which was in '96.
Gotcha. So what you're telling us is you need to go back and play Dark Force.
No, I really don't think I need to go back.
Do you have a Steam account? Because they've been incredibly discounted.
I've actually gotten most of the Star Wars games through GOG.com.
Yes.
So
they just redid X-Wing and TIE Fighter. Yes.
That company does a very good job of updating stuff to work on modern systems.
So for people that don't know, you can't just pop in a disc of X-Wing or TIE Fighter that you might still own.
You can, but you'll have to do a lot of work to get it to
it's
work.
not going to play just right out of the box. But GOG, right?
Yep, GOG. Good Old Games is I think the acronym.
They partner up. I shouldn't say buy. They partner up with several classic games and a few recent stuff too. I think, and they redo code and make it play on all current systems, and it has been doing very well for them from what I understand. But yes, that was a bit of a tangent about video games. So,
but yeah, Gorkin Pick from Imperial Entanglement's probably the set I had the most fun designing, just because, as I said, that fight stuck in my head just for how much trouble I had with it. Is like I want to bring these two characters to life, because you just don't get anything about them in the game. It's just like, I want to show them off, and the cool artist, I can't remember their name. It's either Michael or Michelle Frigo, I think. I forget the name who did the Gorkin Pick art. Absolutely phenomenal job.
It's pretty good art.
I have seen it. It looks great.
I like the telepathic connection. That's pretty good too.
I like Gork out of the two best. That's it's so fun to have these.
He's the big one, right?
Yeah, he's the big one.
Yeah, those guys are going to be a blast to see him play.
5 health. Ooh. So good.
So switching gears just a little bit again.
So does this mean? Oh yeah. You know what? These are out of order anymore, so I don't know what's here.
You're asking number 7.
Yeah. So the latest FAQ addressed a lot of power and abuse within the game, specifically with the light side of the errata and restrictions. Which do you feel will have the most impact on the meta? And discuss any particular restriction or anything you'd like.
It's a little bit difficult just to say any particular one. One of the things with some of the errata and the restrictions is that they're all kind of designed to work in concert. They're all put out at once and designed to sort of work together to help address the metagame concerns that were there at the time. And so any single one of those errata or restrictions may not have done much to address the concerns. And so they're kind of they all work together as a group. So I can't really sort of pick one or single out what I think is either the most important or will have the most impact, just because they're, as I said, they're all kind of designed to work together to help to help address the metagame and keep it healthy, and hopefully
I mean, for me it felt like the splitting up the Yodas really cut, I don't want to say cut the Jedi at the knees, but it really took some wind out of their sails. And as a TIE Fighter deck player today, I really appreciated that he wasn't everywhere to just focus down my board every turn. So
sure,
I was happy with that one.
I was sad about it. I was a quadruple Yoda player.
Yeah.
I was sad to see him go.
A quadruple Yoda player?
Yeah, I played.
Oh, you're just saying. I'm thinking quadruple Yoda sets. I'm like, wait, there's a 4th Yoda set?
Not yet.
I was a fan of them and their interactions, but at the same time, as I was talking with several people today, sometimes it felt like, because of the power level of them along with other things, that you kind of just got into these situations where I call them gimme wins, where just because you had some really powerful stuff together, your deck you were more likely to win than you were to lose.
Yeah.
So I think chopping them up, saying no more, I think it definitely addresses a lot of those gimme win potentials.
Well, that's what adding stuff to the restricted list or making errata or making those sorts of changes. That's what they're for, is to help just sort of if there's something that becomes either way too dominant or is just not performing right, or is just flat out broken and needs to get a fix somehow. That's what those are for.
Now, and other games have restricted lists, right? Mm-hmm. This isn't just like a thing for the Star Wars LCG.
Correct.
But now cards have come off those restricted lists.
Yep. Like Game of Thrones pioneered the restricted list.
Yes.
When I forget, it was about 3-4 years ago at this point where that started coming out, and things have gone on to that or off that as necessary.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it could be in the future some changes may not occur. We don't know.
Sure.
Erratas, though, games that have seen erratas within
erratas tend to be more permanent, just because if you're changing the functionality of a card, errata, as I talked about this on the Ion Control podcast as well, that errata are kind of a much more permanent solution, just because you're changing the functionality of the card in everyone's mind, and if you go and change it back to something or unerrata something, it ends up being much more confusing for people to keep track of than just having to remember, oh, this card has an errata, and being able to either remember or pull up what that is.
Right.
So certainly if it becomes absolutely necessary, there isn't, they aren't 100% guaranteed permanent, but they're pretty close to it, because we don't do errata lightly, and so you don't want to just be changing the functionality of cards.
So my second Gamma run is going to be useless for the foreseeable future.
You can have it another day.
Just a little playful tease. That set totally needed to be one of, though. So everything okay?
I'm not sure. We're gonna pause this for just a second. I am nervous that my mic is not picking anything up.
Oh, that would be completely horrible.
I'm not seeing a meter move now, and I'm not sure we've been recording this whole time. Awesome. It says it's on. It says it's working, but I've got two different meters, and neither of them are moving for sound.
Uh-oh.
But there's literally nothing I can change, so I don't know why we wouldn't be having sound.
Can you stop it and play it back, or is that going to be...
So that's a little bit of a minor problem. If I stop it, I don't have a way to edit two YouTube videos together, so I don't have a way to... I can see if I can pause the broadcast, but that I doubt.
Are we live?
Yeah, so it's recording. My concern, after looking at this for 2 seconds here, is I see no... so you guys can see, that time it made a noise when I laid it down. See? There it's moving, but it's acting like it's not hearing us talking for some reason. So, you see? So if that is recording, I'm sure that's really annoying to people, that thumping noise. But here, we'll do it here. So this thing right there should probably be nothing there. So we're going to assume we're recording. I don't know why it wouldn't be. Again, I have, obviously you can tell there's no...
We did have 2 lost episodes in the early days.
But this has been recording so well, I don't know why it wouldn't be recording our audio. So we're going to just keep assuming that it is. There's really no reason why it wouldn't, as far as I'm concerned. All right. So I think we only had 3 questions left.
Yes.
So I'd say we power through and hope for the best.
Hope for the best.
I'm sure we don't have your time to repeat this if this didn't work. So this could be just a complete failure. Maybe we can try again tomorrow if for some reason this didn't record.
Or,
okay.
Saturday or sometime.
Perfect.
I go home Saturday.
Yeah.
All right. We'll keep our fingers crossed to understand why it wouldn't be picking up our voices for some odd reason. Anyway, all right. So our third to last question for you tonight is: do you have a favorite affiliation to design cards for, and which aspects of design for that particular affiliation appeal to you most?
Not really a favorite. I mean, they each have their own strengths and weaknesses, and so they all offer different and interesting things to explore. There's certain things that I might do in Jedi or such that I wouldn't do in Navy, and so, or vice versa. And so, I wouldn't say I have a favorite because if I get stuck in one of them for too long, then you sometimes run out of ideas for a while. So it's very great to be able to shift gears and move to a different faction, move to a different mode of thinking. As they each have their own kind of deck types and themes and feels, and so it's like if I shift over to Scum, I'm going to start looking at ways to break the rules that are interesting. If I move over to Smugglers, it's like, okay, what sort of risk versus reward situations can I use?
Does that mean I can cheat when I'm playing Scum?
No.
Darn it. He said break the rules.
Oh, things like Reversal of Fate, using your opponent's edge stacks and other sort of things.
I love Reversal of Fate, but it is the most awkward card to play. Because there's like, do you pass? I pass. Okay, I pass. Wait a minute. Wait. Oh, you revealed. I had Reversal of Fate, darn it. Yeah. Terrible card.
So that's the sort of thing when I mean like breaking the rules. It's like Scum are going to look for ways to do things outside the normal way of doing things that when you play them, you feel like you're cheating, but you're not because the cards let you do it. So
if a card says you can cheat, it's okay.
And none of them are going to say.
Darn it!
But no particular favorite affiliation.
No particular favorite. No, as you said, being able to shift between them is really helpful. Just it keeps ideas fresh for each of them, so they don't get stuck with any one for too long.
Sure.
So.
Sure. Well, I don't know how to say that in a way that would make sense, so I won't say that. I'll think about it a little bit. It's an affiliation. So I'll ask the same question, but I'll ask it outside of design. So you had a big Star Wars gaming background. Mm-hmm. Definitely enjoyed a lot of the classics. Yep. I think. So when enjoying those games, did you have a favorite? I won't say affiliation, obviously, but did you have a favorite connection to? I'll throw this out. Like when I play KOTOR or KOTOR 2, I always go dark. I'm always just I just want to force lightning people all the time.
That's morbid, man. That's morbid.
Or some people, I know a lot of people. Some people prefer X-wing over TIE Fighter.
Of all of the old Star Wars games, TIE Fighter is probably my favorite.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. So in the day, back then. All right. Second to last question.
All right. So we've been given a taste of missions in the upcoming Endor cycle. Can you tell us about the design process specifically in regards to the goals of introducing the first new card type?
It's the first. It's a big deal. I think it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It'll come out relatively soon, we imagine.
We hope.
And at that point, the game will be around at least 3 years. So 3 years in, we get our first card type, new card type.
So missions are one of those things. There's the objectives that form the core of all the decks. They give you something that you're kind of working with, but they didn't really have going and attacking your opponent's objectives was always just about denying them the thing that they were trying to work with. And so missions give us a way to kind of do that. The basic framework of the game, the attack defense cycle and the conflict phase.
Sure.
And it lets you do something like I want to go get, I want to go do something in particular with this, rather than just I'm going to try and deny you an option. Sure. And so the missions give you a way to still participate in that sort of that one of those one of the couple of core mechanics of the game, attacking and defending, and be doing it for I'm trying to get a reward out of this rather than just I am attempting to deny my opponent a reward.
Sure. Which makes a lot of sense because the number one thing I find myself doing is trying to blow up Heroes and Legends or try to blow up Council of the Sith. So it's very interesting to see that we're going forward. We're going to be working more towards a reward mindset,
I mean, there'll be some of both because they are another option for you to engage, and so you still have all of your opponent's options, and so it also provides a very interesting, just sort of in-game, sort of mental conflict of is it more important for me to get the reward that I'm trying to achieve, or is it more important at this point for me to deny my opponent something?
Sure.
And so it gives you another step of being able to interact with the game.
I'm looking forward to seeing what they do to the game. We've had 2 spoiled so far. Does that sound right?
There's been 2?
There was the one from Han Solo set that was the focus of the article, and then in the card fan they showed Lure of the Dark Side.
Yes, that's the one I was
So they
thinking
showed
of.
Lure of the Dark Side, which lets Dark Side player take control of something after they complete the mission.
Yes.
Seems legit.
Yes. I think what's a really cool concept about
Easier
it
and more seductive, the Dark Side.
I think
Is there any restriction on that card, or is it just
It
any
is take control of enemy unit with printed 4 or fewer Force icons.
See, the only thing I remember from the stuff that was spoiled of Endor was jamming protocol. the Dark Side Counter-Stroke.
Yeah, we are excited for that. All right. Well, that was our one indoor question. Well, very little's know. I mean, we don't know.
Right.
The biggest thing is missions, right? I mean, that's the crazy thing.
There should be an announcement coming soon for the second pack, I would think.
So you want to hit this last one?
Oh, you're going to give it to me?
Yeah, please.
All right. Sorry, the stupid hotel internet keeps wanting me to connect. Of all the Star Wars characters you've designed cards for, who's been your favorite and why?
That's a really hard question.
Say Han Solo. Say Han Solo. I'm a huge Han
You know what
Solo.
we should have done? We should have wrote down like our secret, like what we think he's going to say, right? And then just
I
wild
will say
stats.
that the Corset Han Solo design, that's actually all Erik Lang. So
very cool.
a lot of the Corset card design is Erik Lang.
He should get a lot of props for that. A lot of people love
Pretty
the
much
fact
all
that
of-
Han
pretty much all
shot
of it is-
first.
Pretty much all of it is him. Nate and I were helping him with the
Sure.
game, and so we had some input on it. But all of the core concepts that we started working off were all his.
I think that tie into the Han shot first element. I
Yep.
think a lot of people are a fan of how that plays out. But what do you have?
As I say, it's there are things that I like about a lot of the different cards of trying to finding a character that I either liked or know about or have just even researched about. I mean, there are a few characters from that I've put into these things that I didn't know anything about before I started. And I was like, they got linked in some other article I was looking at for research.
Sure.
I was like, oh, this character looks interesting. Who is this character? And then trying to find fleshing them out. And so, they all have different. Different interests and things to try. There's a lot of sort of top down type of ideas of just like, this is Thrawn. Who is Thrawn? How do I make how do I represent his personality in a card? And there's the other way of just like, I've got a really cool ability, and it's like, all right, who can I find in the Star Wars universe that this fits thematically, and be able to build an identity around them and maybe tweak the ability a bit to fit their personality a little bit better. And then of course, especially with this with the way this game is designed, is how do I then build an entire set of cards around them that kind of all encapsulates this and takes whatever that idea was and really is able to flesh that out and make it something that's fun to play with. So
you said you're a Star Destroyer guy. So is there a Star Destroyer that's come out so far, named or not named, that you?
Of all the Star Destroyers that are out, I do really like the Chimera.
Okay.
That design came out really well, and I like the way that one plays.
Looks so good.
Thunder Flare's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's so
just-
cool.
It throws wrinkles in things. So.
Yes. I'm a big fan of the Victory or Death set, and I like the Victory guys, and I feel like those are guys that they seem primed to only get better. So I was never the CCG had the Victory classes and the big Star Destroyers. I was never much of a Victory class guy. But.
I still do technically have some of my Decipher Star Wars cards somewhere.
Nice.
And I know that the last time I built decks for those, which was at this point at least 10 years ago, the two decks that I had built were an X-Wing deck and a Star Destroyer deck. And so I had most of the named Star Destroyers up through this point where I stopped playing the game.
Did you know that there's some CCG events at Gencon this year?
No, I did not.
There is a group of guys that are doing. They now have drafts and then Cube. I don't know if you're familiar with Cube with Magic, but yeah, they've got Cube set up as well, so they're entertaining. If I can figure out where they're stationed, I'll have to point you their way so you can walk by and see some of the insanity that they are up to now. But all right, so
Quick side question: who's your favorite Star Wars character?
Oh boy.
Just say Owen or Beirut.
No, probably not.
Trying to think of a random background character. Like the CCG had so many random background characters.
Who was Uncle Owen's dad? Who was his name? He was the one in that hover wheelchair.
Oh, Krieg or something, or
Yeah.
Clegg or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. He was in the dice game. Yeah.
He
Did something really.
He did something
Yeah,
bad
him and
too.
Shimmy were both in there.
Yeah.
And is he even in the prequel? Like, is he in one of the cuts? Like, I don't. Is he?
Yeah,
I don't
because
remember
Anakin comes looking for his mom.
Yeah.
And
They have a conversation.
He's got
That's
a real
right.
raspy voice.
Yeah. That's right.
The Sand People told me or
Yeah.
something, you know?
It's like Klieg or Craig.
Yeah,
it's
it's
not.
Klieg.
It's not. Yeah. Man, I'm so sad at myself for knowing that right now.
Unfortunately, I can't really tell put a finger on a favorite. There are a lot of really good characters in that universe that are fun to see either on screen or read about. And I mean, there's some of the classics. I think Darth Vader was definitely a very good imposing character for the time period. Makes a very great villain, but you've also got you've got characters that are on the side of that, like Tarkin is very sinister and makes a you see the one guy who is bossing around this guy who's scaring the crap out of everyone else, and then you have light side of things. You've got you have the sort of standard hero arc type characters. You've got the hero, his mentor, and then the people that that go around with him.
Right.
And so those they all get fleshed out very well. So
Sure.
As I say, it's just like just like some other things. The aggregate of them is what makes it probably the most interesting, and picking out a favorite is very hard from that.
Almost seems unfair to the others, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You have. I know you have like two, but I'm curious if you can narrow it down between the two.
But as in, like, my favorite
I'm pretty sure your two are Han and Boba.
Yes.
But I'm curious if you can, like, if you
Han.
had to pick. Really, just Han? Just
Han. I love Han Solo.
So true. So mine's Emperor. I've always said it. Anytime I can shoot Force lightning out of my hands, I'm happy. So true story. I don't know people listening. There's a game that came out a couple years called Skyrim. I don't know if you guys played Skyrim or not. Okay. So I start Skyrim, and I always get super lost in those games, and I don't mean like I can't find my way. I mean more of like I'm just gonna get absorbed in something or another.
Mm-hmm.
So I boot up Skyrim, and I'm talking to somebody, and this is the very first town. Okay, Skyrim is a massive, not online, but just a massive RPG. All right, and the big selling point, as I'm sure you know, was the dragons. You were gonna be able to fight dragons, and the way it was sold was like you would just be doing something, and a dragon might fly in and start attacking what you're doing. So I'm in the very first town, and this guy in the town, he's talking to me. He's like, "Oh, you want spells? Well, if you want spells, you need to go visit such a school of such and such or something, right?" So literally, first thing I did was I just made a beeline. Okay, I didn't have any sort of fast travel, nothing. I just had to walk. All right, probably took me at least an hour or more of just walking, right, across this like giant, massive land.
And this is just in some.
This is just a Skyrim.
Stupid game.
Just a video game. Well, it's not stupid to a lot of people, all right? I mean, it's a big deal. So,
There's this thing. It's called the outdoors.
Yeah. So
So
I
people
walk.
go out there.
I walk to this school, and they tell me like, oh, to be in this school, you can learn magic, you can do this stuff. If you played, you know what I'm talking about, right? So I spent 2.5 days just doing. The only thing I did was stuff at that school. That was it. Anything they needed to do, I would just do that. So I played for 2.5 days because all I wanted to do was I wanted to see if I could shoot lightning out of my hands. That was it. I figured if I can learn magic, I'll shoot lightning out of my hands. 2.5 days walking around the school, doing all the random quests, right? 2.5 days go by. A friend of mine, he says, "Oh, I saw you picked up Skyrim." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "How you liking it?" I said, "Oh, it's a blast. I'm having fun. I normally don't have that much fun with those, but I'm really enjoying it." He goes, "What do you think of the dragon fights?" So I go, "Dragon fights? What dragon fights?" So apparently, you had to go a little further outside of town to initiate the part of the game that would start sending the dragons. Like that, so you'd have the first dragon encounter, which would then create all the others. So in my beeline to the school, I never made it to that little scene, and so I played for like 2.5 days, and all these people are just like having so much fun fighting dragons and stuff, and I'm just trying to be the emperor. That's all I'm doing. I had no idea, so I didn't experience dragons for the first. That's my tangent of the story. So. But, all right, Eric, that is all the questions we have for you. I sincerely hope this recorded. If not, we'll try to record again tomorrow. But Thank you so much for taking the time out, especially after what I imagine is a pretty exhausting day.
It wasn't. It was long. It's not necessarily exhausting.
He didn't actually have to play and think. He just stood there and watched.
I can imagine. Yeah, I was gonna say I can imagine some of those rules questions that
There's
come up. That
probably
require
a
some
handful
thinking.
of rules questions.
Nah,
too.
stop it. Thank you so much for being on.
Thanks for inviting me on. I mean, you guys do a live cast generally while I'm at work, so it makes it pretty much impossible for me to get on the cast any other times. So,
Yes.
thanks for the opportunity for being on.
Absolutely. We're
Glad to
thrilled.
have you.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's gonna do it for our post Gencon conversation. We are gonna go over Imperial Entanglement tomorrow and your national championship.
Whoa.
Yeah, I said
calling
it. I said it.
You just jinxed me, sir.
I don't know if this is recording, so nobody might know about it. But
That is true. That's
you know,
true. If it
I
didn't
said
record, it never happened.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. We will be back tomorrow with another fun little cast.
Hopefully, yeah.
Thanks again, Eric.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
First, we got to get in the booth. So, there's that.
What is happening? Just let me turn it off.